Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's show. My name is Spencer Walsh. Thank you so much for joining us here today. We have a good one for you here, as always. It's just me today, but we're going to be talking about a big blackout hitting an Iran nuclear site in what appears to be Israeli sabotage. And, you know, if it's Israeli, the chances are the United States was not far behind. And it's going to be interesting to see how the United States responds to this here. Obviously, we'll break down what some of the problems are with this Iran nuclear deal, the context, and the possible ripple effects for the region. Also, I do want to briefly touch on Trump's return performance at Mar-a-Lago last night, and he pretty much called Mitch McConnell a dumb SOB. We'll take you through some of the latest on that cheat sheet. We are also going to break down a story in Bloomberg that I found to be pretty interesting about Ocasio-Cortez and her allies and how they're dealing with the establishment. A very, very interesting and very, very provocative story for someone like me who wants to follow the way the left interacts with members of the establishment. I'm going to be breaking that down for you today. Thank you so much for joining us. Welcome. This is Newsflash. All right, everybody. So we're going to get right into this here today, and we do start with this big blackout. It's hit Iran's nuclear site in what appears to be Israeli sabotage here. Reporting on the New York Times about this. Let's pretty much explain what's going on. A power failure that appeared to have been caused by a deliberately planned explosion struck Iran's Natanz, an uranium enrichment site on Sunday when Iranian officials called an act of sabotage they suggested had been carried out by Israel. So Israel here really putting in the United States, for at least for pretty much since most of the Trump administration, I would say, they have been on the offensive in this region. So pretty much what happens here, this comes in the context of the Iranian nuclear deal in 2015, a massive step in the region. Probably, I would say, one of the best things Obama ever did. Especially with foreign policy, that's for sure, which was kind of take things down a step with Iran, bring their nuclear program down to a kind of controlled way, greatly kind of destabilize or restabilize the region, take away a lot of the, kind of the threat from them, and piss off also some of the worst people. Like, he really had to spend most of the rest of his administration kowtowing to people like Benjamin Netanyahu and Saudi Arabia's Mohammed bin Salman for that. He paid a pretty heavy price again with the kind of, you know, foreign policy establishment. That was not a fun thing, not something that they liked, because certain large parts of this, especially the right-wing foreign policy establishment, had really wanted to and have successfully, in a lot of ways, painted Iran to be one of the biggest villains on the world stage, and a big threat and big enemy of the United States. And they have kind of teamed up with Saudi Arabia and Israel and pretty much every other major country, maybe like Syria's on Iran's side a little bit, but, you know, they're not in a good state right now, if you're not aware, to pretty much duke this out in a multi-sided war, which Iran, being the kind of only major power on one side, is really has been doing surprisingly well in, even though they're definitely kind of under-resourced. This, of course, leads to the Trump administration and really Trump emboldening some of the worst aspects of both Saudi Arabia and Israel here to just push the envelope and push conflict with Iran in the wake of pulling out of this nuclear deal. And right now, Biden's actions have pretty much said, in almost all doctrines, we will carry out the Trump foreign policy. We'll continue to carry out the Trump foreign policy, and that is going to be especially clear with Iran, where we backed out of the nuclear deal and we imposed horrific sanctions on them that were on things like medicine and food, so much so that when the United States Council on Human Rights wanted to get mad at us about it, we just left. We were just screw it. We are going to lose, and we just had a kind of fit. Nikki Haley made a big fit about that, made a big fit about Israel, then she finally left the United Nations. I think it was the Security Council or something like that. But it like the big fits that they have had over this have really set the stage for Biden to kind of come up and do the same thing in a more respectable way. That is what has happened here, and Blinken has pretty much said the foreign policy. Antony Blinken, Secretary of State, has pretty much said that the foreign policy from the Trump administration, in large part with pretty much all the major fronts, with regards to like Venezuela, Iran, and pretty much just their position toward China as well. They've said they're going to continue the same posture. So like it really is kind of remarkable. All this like restoring the soul of the nation and really like reaching out to our allies and all that just dumb pablum that Joe Biden's campaign fed liberals and respectable media for however long the campaign has really been completely devalued. So that's a very, very apparent thing for sure. But let's see the rest of this specific story here. Blackout injected new uncertainty into diplomatic efforts that began last week to salvage the 2015 nuclear deal repudiated by the Trump administration. So, yeah, they've been trying to do it, America has, but they have put steep conditions for Iran to, quote, come back into compliance, which is kind of hilarious. Like, Iran's like the bad child that needs to be, like, reprimanded by the United States. Like, the United States broke this deal. And if you're dealing with actors such as the United States in the world stage, in your country with a competent government, you want to get a nuke as soon as possible, especially for a country like Iran here, who is the target of, like, there's a large faction of very powerful people who want to see the Iranian government wiped off the face of the earth, in the United States government and in a lot of other governments around the world. So it is in their best interest to pursue a nuclear weapon for self-protection of their people. Obviously, it's better that no one had a nuclear weapon, but it is not surprising that Iran may want to do this, and it's laughable when Americans have the right to come in and say, "Oh, this is really irresponsible for Iran to come in and pursue this." Like, when it's just a complete and utter one-sided, just completely distorted view of the situation. It is 180 backwards as opposed to reality here. So, American and Israeli intelligence officials said there had been an Israeli role, and you got to wonder that was at least probably signed off on by America. They were aware of it, and so it's a great sign of what the policy here kind of continues. So, if so, Iran's leverage in new talks sought by the Biden administration to restore the nuclear agreement could be significantly compromised. Iran has said it'll take increasingly strong actions prohibited under the agreement until the sanctions imposed by Donald Trump have been rescinded. I mean, that's completely fair. Like, anyone who says otherwise is just absolutely bonkers. Come on. But if so, Trump's leverage in new talks sought by the Biden administration to restore the agreement could be significantly compromised. Iran has said it will take increasingly strong actions prohibited under the agreement until the sanctions imposed by Trump have been rescinded. So the officials here, this is the important part, the officials who spoke on the condition of anonymity to describe a classified Israeli operation said the explosion dealt a severe blow to Iran's ability to enrich uranium, and that it could take at least 9 months to restore Natanz's production. So I don't know if they have any other areas like that, but it will, based on what Israel says, it's going to be a severe blow. We'll see if that actually comes to pass. I'm sure it very well could be a pretty severe blow, but there is no reason for Iran not to just chug ahead and keep going on the path that they're going. And it is like when you see responses like this, where it is very understandable to why Iran feels like they're kind of in a corner at the moment. It's not immediately clear how much advance word, if any. I'm going to make a prediction, make an educated guess that the United States government was very well aware of, if not condoned, this attack. So this is really great. It did happen actually on the same morning that as American Defense Secretary Lloyd J. Austin III was visiting Israel. But Israel officials have made no secret of their unhappiness over Biden's desire to revive the nuclear agreement, quote unquote, his desire, which is not really presented very strongly. And by the way, he has always had an incredibly cozy relationship throughout the vice presidency, throughout his time in the Senate, with Israel. So I doubt that is going to be too much of a priority, the Iran nuclear deal, on Biden's list here. So, yeah, Israel officials have made no secret of their unhappiness to revive the nuclear agreement his predecessor renounced in 2018. Ali Akbar Saleh, the head of the Iran's Atomic Energy Organization, described the blackout as an act of nuclear terrorism and said the international community must confront the threat. Well, I don't think there's going to be a lot of good coming from you there, but he says the action this morning against the Natanz enrichment site shows the defeat of those who oppose our country's nuclear and political development and the significant gains of our nuclear industry, according to the Iranian news media. The incident shows the failure of those who oppose Iran negotiating for sanctions relief. So, yeah, it doesn't look like at this rate sanctions relief is going to be coming anytime soon, because it doesn't look like Biden is serious at all, or like is even trying to lower tensions with Iran in any way. Like, they don't seem to be putting that very highly, because it's just, I don't know, maybe it's not what Israel wants, it's not what Biden wants. I mean, I see in general, Biden has a lot of kind of these positions on foreign policy that seem to be to the right of Obama for now. Yeah, so Israel, of course, considers Iran a dire adversary, and it has sabotaged Iran's nuclear work before, with tactics ranging from cyber attacks to outright assassinations. Israel has believed to orchestrate the killings of several Iranian nuclear scientists in recent years, including ambush of a key developer of its nuclear program last November. And, of course, Israel never confirms or denies those actions. So that pretty much is how it stands at the moment in this situation here. Hopefully nothing too crazy kind of comes of it, but I think we will in the end see a slow trend, at least in this direction, of Iran, and we're going to get to the point where this nuclear deal is clearly dead as a doornail. All right, with that being said, let's move on here today to a little bit of information about the show. So, yeah, let's get into it. This is a little bit of what's going on at the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a lot of stuff coming your way here on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. You're listening right now, of course, to Newsflash. We have new episodes for you of Newsflash every Sunday, Tuesday, and Thursday. They will be released, and that's not all. We have Uncultured every Friday. We are expanding our focus there to cover all aspects of culture. We talked about, for example, Peaky Blinders this week, and something about Lil Wayne. So go check that out. It is very, very interesting. We're talking about the best culture of all sides has to offer. And also coming very, very soon, we're going to be getting into our history show, back for a second season under new name, Hidden History. It's coming very soon, and I'm very excited about it. That's what's going on the Spencer Walsh Radio Network. All right, so we are now going to be moving on to what Trump's been up to at Mar-a-Lago. Alex Eisenstadt is reporting this here. Former President Donald Trump ripped into Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell during a Republican National Committee donor retreat Saturday evening, deriding him as a dumb son of a bitch. Trump veered off prepared text during a roughly 15-minute speech before several hundred well-heeled donors at his Mar-a-Lago resort in South Florida, saying he was disappointed in former Vice President Mike Pence, calling last year's presidential election a fraud, and mocking Dr. Anthony Fauci. So, yeah, I mean, I really do. I think do want to kind of get into the psyche of someone who would be at this event. Like, what are they feel like? Where is their position in the party? Like, are they just Trump people? Are they establishment? Like, they're clearly not establishment people, but because, I mean, they wouldn't like the attacks on Mitch McConnell. But yeah, this is really kind of the what Trump has been reduced to now, just the very kind of peripheral, like really completely isolated figure by all sources of established power, whether it be kind of cable media, print media, and of course the big tech companies like Twitter and Facebook. So yeah, but just to be at that Trump thing, that's got to be pretty depressing. Like whoever is there. And it really shows you, for all those who are, again, clearly not, it's not like this should be surprising in any way, but it is clear to see that he was not interested at all and did not care that He was just did not care about any kind of or feel any kind of remorse, at least with in the wake of the Capitol attack. So he is still in the kind of the same exact mental headspace where he was like, "Oh, Mike Pence, he should have come out there and just destroyed our democracy. Like, Mike Pence is such a fraud." So, I mean, it's not surprising that he believes that, but it probably suggests the Republican base is not going to be moving on from it. I mean, definitely suggests that the Republican base is not going to be moving on for it anytime soon. So the former president spent several minutes tearing into McConnell, saying that he didn't do enough to defend him during the February impeachment trial. At one point, according to three people familiar with the remarks, Trump called the Senate GOP leader a dumb son of a bitch. Trump also went after McConnell's wife, Transportation Secretary Elaine Chao, for resigning her cabinet post after the January 6th insurrection. A spokesperson for McConnell, the Kentucky Republican, just did not respond for Congress. I mean, who for comment? Did I say for comment? Oh my goodness. He did not respond for comment. Why would you? Like, I mean, Trump is not someone you want to talk about or think about or interact with in any way if you're someone like Mitch McConnell. But the latest verbal broadsiding against McConnell, the most powerful Republican still in elected office, comes as Trump reemerges as a dominant force in GOP politics. The president has in recent days sought to rev up his smaller dollar fundraising apparatus, and he is issuing a steady stream of endorsement of the 2022 midterm elections in addition to battles over state party chairmanship. So he's getting in there. He is showing that he actually really does, he himself as a personality, as a force of nature, wants to remain in the Republican Party in a big way. So that is very, very clear. And he does not seem to be leaving anytime soon. Though many of Trump's 22 endorsements align with McConnell's preferences, which is kind of funny, he has gotten a little bit crosswise with the GOP leader. He has pledged to oppose Senator Lisa Murkowski in next year's Alaska elections after Murkowski voted for his conviction in the Senate trial. The McConnell and his top allies say they will support Murkowski in the election. It isn't the first time McConnell has been the victim of a Trump attack since leaving office. In February, Trump released an extensive statement bashing McConnell for being a dour, sullen, and unsmiling political hack. The statement came just days after McConnell took the Senate floor to flay Trump for his role in the January 6th attack. Capitol insurrection there. Several attendees said there was little response to Trump's insult, so he just kind of just going with the flow, just watching the big guy go up there, riff, and do his thing. But just in general, this really just seems to be a situation where Trump is going. It's very, very clear that Trump is still the one shining light in the Republican Party, and it's hard to see that there is anyone talented enough or kind of like charismatic enough of a character, enough of a person that people can stand in any kind of way to support. Because Trump is, like, the Republican Party, again, it sounds the most cliche thing, but it is true no matter how many times people want to convince you otherwise. It is the party of Trump, it is a cult of Trump. People like Trump because of Trump. Like, it's that simple. They don't like Trump for any of the major policies that he stands for. It's for a feeling. It is for a feeling of, I think it's for a feeling of getting back at people who you think have gotten too much power, whether it be culturally, whether it be economically, and saying, yeah, we're in charge now. Like, that is a big thing. I think that's a key psychological pillar behind it. I would argue one of the biggest, but yeah, it's just joking around, and it's just really just joking around, but in a very like hate-fueled, angry, and just bile, venomous way. So Trump's ongoing criticism of Pence has created a rift in their relationship, while several other potential 2024 Republican hopefuls made the trek to South Florida for the event. Pence did not. The former president also savaged Anthony Fauci, saying that he gave him bad advice. He poked fun at Fauci for botching a first pitch at the last year's opening day game for the Washington Nationals. And Florida Governor Ron DeSantis, who spoke before Trump, also went after Fauci, sources said. He, weirdly enough, I think Ron DeSantis is the only guy who I think has that kind of panache. You know, that Trump, well, he doesn't, no one has that Trump flair. No one has that Trump, energy. Like Trump's energy, again, is just Trump. But I think Ron DeSantis is probably the next best thing. If you're someone in GOP circles, I think that is, he's vociferously pro-Trump. He is been in government. Like he you know how he governs. He governs Florida in kind of like the perfect Trump way, ignoring the experts, and whatever consequences that blatant corruption, making the media, liberal media, hate him. I mean, really, all the same. The reason why I kind of get this feeling is all the same people hate Ron DeSantis with very similar types of vitriol. I just get that same sense that he pisses the same people off in the same way that Trump, or not in the same way, but in a similar way, not as strong nearly to what Trump does. But if he got out in the national stage, I think he would be very good and kind of a force to be reckoned with, at least for the Republican primary, in terms of really how he can piss people off. I mean, not that it isn't locked up for the Republicans already, but it would probably certify Florida. The 3-day event drew a number of potential 2024 contenders, including Ron DeSantis, South Dakota Governor Kristi Noem, absolute beauty, by the way, Senator Marco Rubio. They were also present. Also present were several 2022 midterm election candidates, including James Timken and Bernie Moreno, both of whom were seeking Ohio's open seat. The confab was held mainly at the Four Seasons Resort in Palm Beach, though Saturday evening dinner attendees made the short jaunt north up the A1A to Mar-a-Lago for dinner. Yeah, sounds nice. Sounds like a lot of fun. Yeah, great. Awesome. Cool. Anyway, we're going to close out today's show with a little bit about AOC, an interesting new article that I think is worth reading, and kind of like almost every little bit of this article that we can kind of highlight. You know what? Actually, maybe let's have to just play the audio files, see how that sounds.
Ocasio-Cortez, allies move to court establishment.
Yeah, we don't. This
not
sounds
fight.
bad. Anyway, yeah. So leading progressives like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, okay, no problem so far. We're good. Had a choice after they won the 2018 election, expand their ranks in 2018, challenge the Democratic leaders from the sidelines, or get in the game. And again, right off the bat here, this is the framing of their choice. Establishment framing through and through. Challenge Democratic leaders from the sidelines is what, in reality, what that means is, and again, people, this is the perfect Washington establishment mindset. The only place where you can make any change is in the Capitol, is in the halls of power. You can't do it any other way. You have to go through us, and you have to get on our good sides. Like that is what is going on right here. You can challenge Democratic leaders for sidelines, or get in the game, get in those back rooms, play, get dirty with us, roll in our filth together, and just get nothing done. And act like you're, the best people in the world for it. That is the way the Democratic Party works. It's the way it's worked for at least a very long time. And yeah, that's just a perfect example off the bat. As it's so funny, the character challenge Democratic leaders from the sidelines. Like what that really means is leading protests, leading sit-ins in Nancy Pelosi's office, direct action involving the people, getting them out there and getting them passionate about something for once. That is the scariest thing, and it results in these kind of sniping comments. So here, now their decision to play by Congress's rules is giving them clout in a government under unified Democratic control with President Joe Biden. Again, I don't see the clout. Where is the clout coming from? Nothing nothing the progressives want is getting any sort of attention, any sort of movement. It's getting nothing but watered down, and they're not hated because they haven't done anything to be hated. They're just sitting there. They're hanging out. They're not doing anything. Members of Representative, all I've heard, AOC's most substantive, most notable thing she's done in this legislative session is probably talk about, the trauma she felt after the January 6th attack. That's it. That's all we get as America falls off the cliff's edge here into further deepened economic pain, K-shaped recovery, all that stuff. And it's a completely fair discussion to have, but some action on the $15 minimum wage. So at least if you're in there, if you have a plan, if you're gonna do an insider's plan to get the $15 minimum wage through, that's great. But you're not, and you're not even pretending that you're trying. Ilhan Omar was out there. She admitted clearly that there was no plan for the $15 minimum wage. Then what's the point? What's the point of any of this? What's the point of just it's really sad. It's really ridiculous. It's kind of disappointing, and someone needs to get through to the people who are supposedly, listening to their constituents that this is not working. It's clearly not. Like, look at the results. Look at the report card. What is there to show for it? What progress has been made? I mean, I'll wait. I don't see it. So members of the Representative Ocasio-Cortez so-called squad are taking leadership roles in the House and building experience on Capitol Hill, turning them not just into ideological purists, but also strategic legislators. They're gently pushing a bolder Democratic strategy and meeting regularly with White House aides, bringing liberal dreams like a $15 federal minimum wage and a permanent child tax credit within reach. So, again, with that, $15 federal minimum wage, Biden has pretty much already given up on in all effect. And there seems to be no real effort to bring it back into the infrastructure package, so a complete joke. Permanent child tax credit, they pretended like they were going to do, and now that's also not going to be in the next stimulus bill either. Again, another complete facade, complete window dressing, complete paper thin veneer of that just completely false, completely plastic FDR aesthetic that Biden's going for here. It's really kind of pathetic. Rather than starting a rival group within the Democratic Party, I mean, don't have to officially start one, but you could just be a little bit more confrontational. That's all we ask for. I mean, you've tried this way, nothing's been getting done. Why not something else? The far left members are joining and taking leadership positions in the 95-member Congressional Progressive Caucus. Guys, they're taking over, the progressives are taking over the Congressional Progressive Caucus. We're making so much progress, and the progressives have so much clout. Like, that's the saddest thing I've ever heard. So Minnesota Representative Ilhan Omar, also elected in 2018, leads the CPC's vote counting team. So yeah, of course they're at the top of the CPC. They're the best known progressive lawmakers in the country. But what are they doing with that power? They're not making the CPC into a formidable voting bloc. It's as soft as Jell-O. There are people in there who support all types of different things, and it's just useless. It's completely useless. It's a joke. It's an absolute joke to come out and say, oh well, we are the CPC is a major political force. Where? Yeah, where? It's not existent. Anyway, so this is a different approach than the Tea Party Republicans took after they were elected in 2010. Probably a bit more effective than AOC has been thus far. Instead, they challenged GOP leadership and spurned the existing conservative Republican Study Committee to start the Freedom Caucus and draw a starker ideological line. Democrat Mondaire Jones, a newly elected representative from New York who just joined the Progressive Caucus's vote counting team, counting all the votes that they don't have and don't even try and get, said focusing on gettable policies. Bad take here from Mondaire Jones. This is not good. Focusing on gettable policies while building consensus for bolder moves in explicit strategy. Gettable policies should be the policies that majorities of Americans support. And you don't get your power from working within the system. You get your power from the people. You get your power from working to mobilize people for certain policies, pushing fights, getting people out in the street, getting people in people's specific districts to go to their offices and protest, make the case, get in front of their faces again and again and again. They can do that. They can lead those efforts, but they're going to be hated for it. And they don't want to be, it's clear, they don't want to be hated because they have completely fallen in, or I don't even know what the case is, but they really have bought into this Washington myth, whether through, disingenuity or, stupidity, that they get their power from the, sucking up to Nancy Pelosi well enough. It's not good. Where we get victories, we should be concentrating our energy into those places. For example, lowering the age of Medicare eligibility over getting a floor vote for Medicare for all. What is the point? If the thing you're going to fight for is it's really frustrating. What is the point of having progressives if you're just going to propose the same thing? You're just going to propose the same thing as the establishment Democratic Party, but you're actually going to keep saying it over and over again until it gets done. No. This is just pathetic. This is pathetic on all fronts. Oh my goodness. And it's like, you're supposed to believe that Biden's the most progressive guy in the world. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. Like, it's a joke. It's an absolute joke. The White House is now regularly consulting the CPC. Gotten us nothing. Nothing. Because the CPC is a joke. It is not organized. It's not coherent. It's a group of people who want the word progressive next to their name. So they can say, look, remember the Congressional Progressive Caucus? You can't get mad at me now. But everybody knows it's fake. Everybody knows it's fake, and they stand for nothing. They've gotten I mean, they've had wins, but they have not been effective as a unit, and no one takes them seriously. I'm sorry, it's gotten us nothing. So, yeah, Biden's $1.9 trillion pandemic relief included a temporary child tax cut to give to families, recurring monthly payments as well that were cut. The threshold cut like really disingenuously, and the threshold was lowered at the last second by Joe Manchin, which progressives did nothing to stop. Liberal Democrats were also like, what is this? What is this phrasing? Liberal Democrats? Are we in the UK? Like, no, like this is not. Bernie Sanders is not more liberal. Like these people, they also, it's just kind of a small thing. It's like a nitpicky thing. Like, Bernie Sanders is not more liberal than Hillary Clinton. Liberal and leftist are different, and the mainstream media should really, it would be nice if they would actually use the proper terms there, but it's probably asking for too much. Anyway, so they are vowing to continue to push for the $50 minimum wage that was included in the House legislation that stripped out in the Senate. Omar said progressives need to take the advantage of the slim majorities Democrats in the House and the Senate have. It would be nice to see that happen sometime, maybe. You know, I'm looking at my clock here. And the CBC will be pushing to influence Biden's next major bill, this $2.25 trillion economic proposal, which AOC has already sounded pretty strong about. We'll see, again, what happens with that. If it's anything like the last bill, I mean, I'm not holding my breath here. The upcoming American Jobs Package gives us another opportunity to fight for bold progressive change. Whatever. Skipping that. House Speaker Nancy Pelosi currently has the majority by just 7 votes, which means a handful of like-minded Democrats can sink any bill that doesn't get Republican support and kind of go tit for tat with Joe Manchin in the Senate. The CPC has changed its rules after last year's. Again, by the way, if they do go tit for tat in the Senate, what that would do, which is bring the battle of ideas, would bring the debate into center stage, and then chances are the progressives will be fighting for a thing that's not just more politically popular with the Democratic base, but with the entire country as large, including probably in Joe Manchin's state. So it's very important to note there. The CPC changed its rules after last year's election to require that members vote as a block on issues that are supported by 2/3 of the group, at least 2/3 of the time, similar to the unity pledge that conservative and the House Freedom Caucus requires. It's a good first step in kind of being an actual coherent unit. Unlike the Freedom Caucus' sometimes thorny relationship with GOP leadership, the CPC hasn't revolted against Pelosi, which is, again, I'm sorry, at some point it has to happen. Pelosi is not a progressive. Pelosi is not fighting for the same political goals as someone like AOC should be, and I do say should be. Progressives opted out not to withhold their votes against Biden's virus-related package after some of their priorities were excluded, an example of their willingness to accept half measures and push for more in the next bill. While there are Democratic primaries in which progressives are supporting challengers, some members have traveled to other districts to work with colleagues and appeal to voters, even in traditionally conservative states like Texas and Alabama. I mean, that's not that surprising, you know. This is part of an effort by progressives affiliated with groups like Justice Democrats to win over voters and their congressional delegations as a way to bring a new form of democratic and progressive representation to Congress in places like Alabama and Texas that are Republican-controlled in so many ways. Again, the thing with that is it should not be working with the congressional delegations. It should be working with the voters. It should be going on the ground to the places that don't get talked to. I think a great example of this is, I'm going to bring it up, the Bernie Sanders campaign organizing and winning critical caucus sites in minority immigrant factories that help put Bernie over the top in certain places that were incredibly critical to his overall result and the reason why he got 6,000 more votes than Pete Buttigieg. It is so important for the left to go to the places where people aren't heard and give them convince them that there is a better path forward if we all kind of come together and stick together, even in a country like this. The attempt to unionize workers at Amazon, they got support from several members of the Progressive Caucus, kind of a no-brainer. Every member of the Progressive Caucus should be down there in a normal, good world. This is a part really of an effort by progressives, again, part of this group to win over these new voters here. The new generation of leaders can still help and serve these communities who are suffering in this country through their bully pulpit, through use of their fundraising. You just don't see that much kind of representation from the old guard. The outreach while the progressive movement's going, even when former President Donald Trump is no longer a unifying force for Democrats, says Mondaire Jones. All right, yeah, and I think that the key here is, bad framing by the Bloomer guy, of course, but you do need to have some fight for the progressive. Like, that should be their, quarter year in New Year's resolutions. Show a little more fight. Buck up, Mondaire. Buck up, Jamal. We need you guys and everybody else there in Congress. All right, that's all we got for you guys today. So long, everybody. We will see you on Tuesday.